Welcome everyone to Tax Talk Canada, where we answer your biggest tax law questions. Today, we're speaking with Charles Haworth, a partner at Radnoff Haworth. Charlie, a question we often get from our subscribers about tax law is, what is it like to go to tax court?
So it's like you see on TV. You have a judge, you have the other side. There's very few differences between what you've seen generally and what tax court is. There are some minor changes versus the provincial courts. For example, the key differences are you're in a federal court because tax is federal, and the rules of evidence are a little bit different. And you've also got to remember you're against the government, so you're dealing with the Department of Justice lawyer and the CRA. You're not really dealing with a private person as you would in the provincial courts.
A follow-up question to that one. Do I have to go to tax court myself, or will my lawyer attend for me? In addition to that, can I represent myself in tax court?
So it depends what process you're in, and that depends on how much money is an issue. So there's informal procedure and general procedure in tax court. If you're in general procedure and you're a corporation, you have to have a lawyer represent the corporation. If you're a private person, then you can represent yourself. However, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that because the full rules of evidence are in effect. So if you don't know those, you're going to be at a significant disadvantage. If you're in informal procedure, it is very informal. You essentially turn up to your trial date on the date with your documents and you tell the judge what the issue is, and you kind of muddle your way through. And a lot of people do it that way because you're only dealing with maybe $5,000 to $15,000. But as soon as you're dealing with 25 and above, you're in general procedure, and it's highly recommended you have a lawyer represent you.
So knowing the laws and the process will ultimately save you time, money, and trouble. One last question, Charlie. In your experience, is the outcome good or bad if you have to go to tax court?
So my experience is you're generally, having been to tax court, you're generally in a better position than had you just stopped after the objection process. Because in the objection process, you're dealing with a CRA employee, and I like to explain it. I always imagine they have a drop-down box, and they're only allowed to do one of those 5 things. Whereas when you're in tax court, you're dealing with another lawyer from the Department of Justice, and the resolution to your issue might be far more creative, and the lawyer can kind of tell his client, the CRA, if we go to trial, this may or may not happen. And so there's a certain amount of leverage that you have when you're in tax court that you don't have before tax court.
So while it's a bad situation to be in tax court, in many cases, the outcome will be good for the defendant going into court.
Yeah, so you have more options. So then, because you have more options, I think there's a lot more better outcomes as part of each of those options.
Charlie, thank you again for your time today and your great answers. I'm Brianna Fox, and this has been a Tax Talk Moment.